Political aftershocks from President Obama's announcement that he supports same-sex marriage reverberated across the country today.
I think it's fantastic. It's about time.
I'm totally against it. It's not right.
The nation's divisions were clearly evident today as Americans digested the president's new support for same-sex marriage. He announced it Wednesday in an interview with Good Morning America's Robin Roberts on ABC. But he insisted it was not designed for political gain.
I think it'd be hard to argue that somehow this is something that I'd be doing for political advantage because, frankly, the politics, it's not clear how they cut. But I'm not going to be spending most of my time talking about this because, frankly, my job as president right now, my biggest priority is to make sure that we're growing the economy, that we're putting people back to work.
The president's re-election campaign was talking about it in a new online video that criticized Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney for opposing gay marriage. Today on MSNBC, Romney's senior advisor, Ed Gillespie, said he will cite the issue as one of many differences with the president.
Sure, I think it's an important issue for people, and it engenders strong feelings on both sides. I think it's important to be, respectful in how we talk about our differences. But the fact is, that's a significant difference in November.
Romney himself spent part of the day addressing allegations about his teenage years at a prep school in Michigan. The Washington Post reported that in one case, he bullied a gay classmate, John Lauber, by holding him down and cutting his hair. Romney apologized today for what he called hijinks and pranks, but he denied singling out anyone for being gay. He spoke in an interview with Fox News Radio.
I don't remember that incident, and I'll tell you, I certainly don't believe that I can't speak for other people, of course, but thought the fellow was homosexual. That was the furthest thing from our minds back in the 1960s.
Back to today, there were new questions about how gay politics and the marriage issue might play in 10 battleground states come November. Same-sex marriage has been banned in 8 of the states: Nevada, Colorado, Wisconsin, Florida, Virginia, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and just this week in North Carolina. 2 other swing states permit it: Iowa and New Hampshire. Tonight, at least, the issue was expected to play to President Obama's advantage at a Hollywood fundraiser hosted by the actor George Clooney and expected to bring in a record $15 million. For more on the potential political consequences and calculations of the president's move, we're joined by Charlie Mattesian. He is national politics editor for the website Politico. And Perry Bacon. He's political editor for NBC News website The Grio. Thank you both for being here. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, Julie.
So Perry, first off, the president's suggesting, we just heard, that this may hurt him politically. Is that right?
I don't actually think it will hurt him politically in the fact that Biden's comments sort of boxed him in on the issue so much, it would have hurt him more to have it hanging out there where the president and the vice president disagree to some extent. I don't know that there's a lot of evidence that's going to really hurt him politically, but it's not clear it's going to help him politically either. And usually presidents don't do things that are sort of dicey in the political sense.
One wouldn't think so. Charlie, how do you see that, whether it could hurt him or help him?
Well, I think it hurts him in particular states. I think when you take a look at the swing state universe, there are some states where the issue really resonates. And if you take a look at the map of the United States and expand even beyond the swing states, I mean, you're talking about over 30 states have rejected it, some states by very large margins, some of them being very important states in the 2012 electoral map. So in the states where the issue really resonates, then it is a problem, especially if it's going to be close in November.
It resonate in the sense of what? Depressing turnout or what? I mean, how do you see that?
Well, there are a couple ways it can resonate. One would be, and this is a point that some folks talked about when thinking through the president's calculus for the decision, the idea that there are some counties with lots of with big universities where it will lead to possibly, a percentage or two, an uptick in turnout. But the other side of the coin would be a state where, for example, they would have had a gay marriage initiative on the ballot recently, and it was overwhelmingly defeated in those kinds of places, and there are many of them, that is going to gin up turnout, or it would. None of the big states will have that this time as compared to, say, 2004. But in those states, the issue really generated turnout, especially among evangelicals.
And one assumes, Perry, as you suggested a minute ago, clearly the White House must have thought through this as part of the president's decision making. But what about the particular states? What do you see as a state or two or three where this could affect the outcome? Because it's going to be close.
What I would look at is Ohio and Pennsylvania have white, sort of working class voters who have not liked the president on other issues as well. People who might be economically more liberal, who might, for instance, support tax increases on the wealthy that Romney opposes, but maybe more socially conservative, may not be pro-choice. I think that there's a little worry there. And then gay marriage is not supported by older voters. So if you look at Florida, for instance, where the electorate tends to be a little older, that's where the challenge would be. I think on the plus side, you look at like a Nevada, Colorado, certain college campuses in Ohio, you might get a little more youth turnout in those states. But still, overall, I'm not necessarily sure there's a lot of voters who were going to vote for Barack Obama yesterday or Tuesday, but are not going to on Wednesday because of the gay marriage decision itself.
Is this something, Charlie, that one can literally calculate? Can you look at the country county by county and say, well, there's this many, say, elderly voters here or young voters there?
I think you can do that to a certain degree. I mean, not with any real certainty about what it's going to be, but you can see the places where it really turned out. Like, for example, if you were to look at Colorado, when Colorado had a ballot initiative several years ago, you had a very big performance in Colorado Springs and the surrounding county, which would have been El Paso County. Now, that's sort of the heart of the evangelical community in Colorado, and in many ways in the United States and in the West. It's a huge, very big city there. Focus on the Family is located there, and that is when the state passed the measure 5544, El Paso County came through by a landslide margin, more than 2-1, so it really outpaced the state. And so in places like that, there are singular counties that are really going to respond to this issue.
A lot of conversation today, Perry, about the African American community where, of course, there is a high degree of support for the president. At the same time, what is it, over 55% of African Americans by polling say that they don't agree with gay marriage. So how does that seem playing?
You know, we haven't seen a big survey of this yet since the president decided this on Wednesday about black voters on Thursday.
But
that said, you know, we did a story in North Carolina where a lot of people said, look, I'm going to vote for this gay marriage amendment. I'm not supporting gay marriage, but I'm not going to leave the president because of one issue. It's hard to imagine his overwhelming support in the black community will somehow change based on one issue.
How do you see that, Charles?
Well, I would agree. It's very hard. I mean, you'd have to have gay marriage ranked as number one, and almost every constituency ranks it as something other than number one, no matter what that constituency is. Having said that, I think the contrarian view would be when you take a look at the president's support in the African American community, it's so high, you can almost only go below that, which is to say he's still going to win, and any change would be marginal, but there's not much room for him to grow. There's really all the room is to deteriorate.
Is there much information available about the Latino community? Again, another community where the president enjoys high support, not as high as in the among African Americans.
The polling I've seen is a little bit more opposition, less opposition than African Americans, but sort of more opposition among Latinos and voters overall to be about gay marriage. That said, we don't know how much that's going to motivate them. As Charlie said, Latinos rank gay marriage as a low issue in terms of voting priorities as well. I mean, gay marriage is a low issue in terms of how they're going to vote as well.
What about, Charlie, the whole question of fundraising? It's already known that in the gay community, the president has many large donors. I saw the other day that 1 out of every 6, one of the so-called bundlers, people who go out and get other people to give, happens to come from the gay community. How do you see that affecting the election?
I think it helps to a certain degree. I think maybe marginally. It's an affluent community. There's a lot of money there. There's a lot of money to be tapped. Having said that, though, it's not as though there are many gay donors that are clamoring to give to conservatives. I mean, they certainly have a base of donors in the gay community, but many of them are locked into the Democratic Party, and they were and were going to be regardless of what the president did. And many times the fundraisers in the donor community, they're fairly politically sophisticated. They understood the constraints on the president and why he couldn't come out, even though they all suspected in their heart of hearts, or probably knew in their heart of hearts, where he stood on the issue.
We are 6 months out from the election, Perry. So the timing of this, more of an effect on the election, or how do you see that?
I think based on what you've seen Romney and Obama do the last couple of days, which is that neither one of them seems eager to talk about this. You know, Obama's already said, I'm ready to talk about the economy now. Romney said the same thing. I think it's going to have very little impact, in part because it happened early and neither candidate wants to talk about this very much. I think by July, they will have said nothing about this since May unless being present. I think it's going to have a limited impact in part because they don't want want to talk about it themselves. It's a controversial issue on both sides.
And interesting, we were just saying, we heard that Romney in an interview today, Charlie, said that he is in favor of gay couples adopting children, which is an interesting aspect of this whole story.
Right. It's interesting for a couple of reasons. Every time he wades into the issue, he seems to get in trouble, whether he's referring to it as a states' rights issue or a federal issue. There would seem to be some tension in having a position where you don't believe in gay marriage but support adoption of children. Either way, it's not a winner for Republicans, and you really saw that yesterday in the aftermath of the announcement. There was close to silence on with Republican candidates across the board because they don't want to be taken off message, because they know fighting a culture war in an economy election is a huge loser for them.
Fascinating subject, and we thank you both, Charlie Mattesi and Perry Bacon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And by the way, on our website, Patchwork Nation breaks down the types of communities where the same-sex marriage issue resonates the most.